Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Just like my big hairy man druid chest there. Today we're going to be going over a unique amulet, which is one of the new ones that's been added in Season 5, and it's pretty interesting. It's called Locran's Talisman. Now, you can't actually pick this up from the quest line, believe it or not, but you can find it throughout the world as well, and it does have some pretty interesting stats. First off, it gives a all stat bonus percentage, which is kind of interesting. There's only a couple items in the game that do something like that. And that means you're going to get strength, which is obviously going to be armor. You're going to get intelligence, which is going to be your stat that governs the damage if you're in a sorceress, but also your resistance to all elements and your resource generation, which is nice. On top of that, you get willpower, which willpower is your overpower damage, your healing received, and then of course you get the dexterity, which is your critical strike chance and your dodge chance. So basically, you get a nice little bump to basically all stats. They're not useless on all characters, but of course, every single character has their own main stat, and that's going to be your main damage stat. But the other ones are things that you generally don't build because, well, you're focused on your damage output. But this is going to give you all of them. So, more armor, more resistances, and more dodge chance, and more crit, and more healing, and more overpower, and just more of everything, right? On top of this, we also get maximum resource on here, which does go from 5 to 13. And these stats can all be beefed up with, obviously, enhancements. So as you can see, the all stats got to 4.5 because it's a greater affix. But I could, of course, masterwork that and bring that even higher. And on top of that, we also have 115% critical strike damage, a 10% resistance to all elements, with the flat 25 already on there from the amulet. That's what all amulets have, for a total of basically 35% all resistances. And then on top of that, we also have the main effect, which is your skills gain a bonus critical strike chance between 10% and 40% bonus per point of primary resource you have, up to 10 to 40%. So in other words, you can get a 40% critical strike chance increase if you have a massive amount of primary resource active at any given time. This could be interesting for basic builds. Could be interesting for a lot of things, actually. And honestly, just a free 40% crit is definitely really nice. Now, the one problem I have with this, though, is that, well, there's really a lot of people, a lot of builds that really don't have any problem with crit whatsoever. So it's not like the most amazing bonus in the world, especially when you consider most people are sitting at like 50, 60% crit, like base without too much of an issue. But obviously it's going to put you at 100%, which is certainly not terrible. On top of this, you also get a secondary effect. So each point of primary resource that you have above 100 grants 0.2% critical strike damage instead. So this means that if you're, say, like a Bone Spirit Necromancer, who has 300 primary resource, and then you have 200 primary resource extra over the 100. This means, of course, that you're going to get a critical strike damage bonus equivalent to 0.2 times 200, which is going to give you a 40 times critical strike damage multiplier. It's not really like the most amazing thing in the world, but you do get a 40% crit and a 40% critical strike damage multiplier added into everything else. One of the issues that really kind of bugs me with this particular amulet is that, yes, it's something that scales based on maximum resource, but a lot of people that are scaling based on maximum resource would probably like to use, say, Melted Heart of Selig, because it has 60 bonus maximum resource, or they're also utilizing things that are going to give them like free overpowers for spending that large amount of resource, like Banished Lord's Talisman. And I'm not entirely sure that people are using this particular amulet with those builds. It's an interesting concept, but I don't know if they nailed exactly what they needed to with this item. Um, it's definitely something that you could throw on as you're leveling up if you find it. Free 40% critical strike chance is certainly not terrible. I just don't really picture it as a best in slot for any build that I'm thinking of. It's also, the flavor text on this says, a single petal of the mother's own blood slowly wilting under glass. Which, of course, when they say mother's own blood, they're not referring to your mother, they're referring to Lilith, right? This is Lilith's petal. Trying to think like what builds could potentially take advantage of this, and I mean Ramaladi's Magnum Opus Barbarians could potentially get good use out of this. You could also get good use out of this through a Bone Spirit Necromancer, a Bone Spear Necromancer. Trying to think of any others. I can't really see a lot of really good use for this because it mainly relies on resource scaling, and not all builds utilize resource scaling. So if you are a build that utilizes resource scaling, then it could be very effective for you. But if you're not a build that uses resource scaling, then it might be garbage. It's kind of up in the air. I mean, getting a free 40% critical strike chance early on, like as a, just something for free, certainly isn't terrible, but it's not my personal preference. Now, where do you get this item? First off, it does come from the quest, so the actual, like, campaign quest, and this is something that I could maybe, like, help you guys with. So, normally for seasonal events, season stuff is denoted by the little green leaf. You got the little green leaf that denotes that it's a season quest. And when you look in here, and you see like specific seasonal quests, they're going to be denoted by the green leaf too. The quest that drops this item is not denoted by a green leaf, and it is something that you have to go to Zarbinzet for, and you're going to talk to, I believe it's this guy standing next to this thing. It's a quest called Eyes of the Enemy. You only have to do it one time across all characters because it's a campaign quest, not a seasonal quest. And I'm pretty sure the guy is usually standing right here, so it's like right by the waypoint. The Eyes of the Enemy quest is going to end in you getting the Locran's Talisman, which is going to obviously give you, access to this item. It can potentially roll with a greater affix too, and depending on what level you find it at, like if you go with like a high level character, it's going to be 925. You can also find this in the Infernal Hells. I did get it from there, and you can find it regularly throughout the world as well. And now you can even gamble it through obviously the amulet, just the regular Purveyor of Curiosities. If you want to try and gamble this amulet, I do have a gambling calculator, which will give you the best odds on Diablo 4.life. And if you take a look at the calculator, it's basically just going to tell you which one is the best one. So we're going to go to tools, gambling aspects, and we're just going to put in the Unix. And then we're going to put the Locran Talisman, which is right here. Now, you might be wondering why specific classes have a better chance than others. Well, it basically has to do with the least number of amulets on a given class versus others. Like, like there's Isidora's Overflowing Cameo, there's Fractured Winterglass, you've got like all the individual items for every single character. But the ones that actually have the least number of amulet slots is actually Druid and Rogue. So that for this particular item, you would do Druid or Rogue to gamble the amulet, because there's a better chance that when you do actually get a unique amulet, that it'll be the one that you want. If you do it on the other characters, like for instance, say the Barbarian, because the Barbarian has the Unbroken Chain, the Battle Trance Amulet, they also have access to, I'm trying to think here, like as far as the amulets go, the Banished Lords. Of course, everybody has access to the Banished Lords. It's not like the best option. There's just amulets for every single character, and some characters just have more amulets than others. Death Speakers, Evan Piercer. I was pretty sure the Necro had more than 2. But it's really just a matter of figuring out how many unique items a character has, and then just kind of narrowing it down from there. Like, for instance, with the Shard of Erethiel, because it's a sword, and the Druid has no sword uniques, then it's a pretty good, bet to do that on the Druid, as opposed to on the Barbarian, which has many sword uniques, like Ramalati's Magnum Opus, the the War Master one, the one that makes the, I can't even remember the name of it for some reason. But that's another one that I'm going to get my hands on and make a unique item video for. Tell me what you guys think about this item. I think it's a little bit of a miss. I'm not entirely sure about this one. I feel like they might have... it might need to be buffed a little bit, I feel like. I feel like it needs to be a little bit buffed. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these videos. And as always, keep watching.